So we're finally trying to record on our conversations, and we'll see how this goes. What do you think?
It's just good to be here. Good to talk to you. We've been chatting back and forth and talking about doing this for a while, so I'm eager to dive in with you. There's just an amazing amount going on.
Yeah. Do you like my background? It's one of my own AI art creations.
Nice.
Yeah. I started this I can't remember if I told you, but I started this like fun side project website called AI Art NZ.com, and it's just like all my New Zealand art creations because I love art. I love New Zealand art. I kind of got that from my parents, and now that I can do it with AI, I just thought, okay, I'm just going to create my own online gallery, and it's cool. It was like a challenge for like coding and learning how to build an app, but I could also bring in my own interest around AI art as well.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to play with these days. It's like I was this background was one I was playing with on Runway, kind of seeing if I could animate,
Yeah,
just
right.
some stills and I got the running river and the scrolling computer and everything, the fireplace.
Oh, so
It-
you did that? You did that yourself?
yeah, yeah.
Oh wow, on
Took,
Runway.
took me like 10 minutes.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Um and
Crazy.
yeah, it's just and I just heard like yesterday there's like a new video generator that can run locally on consumer hardware, and it's supposedly fantastic.
Wow, wow, wow.
So yeah, there's
Um,
just not enough hours in the day to play with all this stuff.
I know it's incredible. It's incredible. One of the things that was amazing that you did last week was your post, and it took off massively on LinkedIn, didn't it? About using Claude 3.7, and it feels like the model sort of got to a place where you could actually run proper analysis that actually looked good, that was sort of on par with Power BI. And yeah, I'm like I mean, I don't know what to do. What has been your takeaway from that?
You know, it's really interesting because there's part of me that it was interesting. I noticed that Greg Deckler is like 19 days away from like 5,000 days of measure totals being
Yeah,
broken.
yeah.
And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, I wonder if in 19 days I can solve that on my own. Like, that
Mm,
basically build an app that lets you run, create really good looking tables and,
mhm,
have it so that the measures are exactly what you want in terms of, picking your own aggregation, whether you
mm.
want it to be the sum of the rows or not, and then having that, able to be, published. And I totally think we're going to get there quickly. I've actually seen some prototypes that people have done based on the React charts that come off of Claude 3.7. And
Oh, okay.
I think you can totally do it. I had a good friend of mine over on last Thursday for dinner, and he's a great JavaScript and web programmer. And he
Right.
showed me how to take the React components and
Mhm.
pull them off into HTML automatically. And so,
Yeah.
when it's creating like slicers and sliders and all that stuff, you can pull that out of what Claude creates, make it reusable, and
Okay.
um, and then kind of use that to build your dashboards.
So you're saying that bypassing Power BI completely, or sending it back into Power BI.
I'm not even thinking about sending it back in.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think we can basically build almost anything we want, just
Yeah.
out of the HTML and I mean the question, it was interesting because I talked a lot with Art Tenick about this. I don't know if you know Art.
Yeah. I get. I've
He's a
seen him online.
brilliant guy. He's got like 20 patents and he's written a
Yeah.
million books.
Yeah.
And he said basically the only thing that he's still even thinking about in terms of having to figure out is how to pull the semantic model out of the Claude configuration.
Mhm.
And so once you can do that, you've got everything you need. That
Yeah.
you can just totally bypass Power BI, I think.
Mm, mm. Oh, that brings up a lot of questions. Brings up a lot of questions. I mean, we've kind of discussed this like many times, haven't we? But it kind of feels like Microsoft's move into Fabric was all because they maybe saw the writing on the wall at the time, and even though they didn't feel like it was ready, they sort of just went ahead and did it because they could see this coming down the line. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to gauge, but that's kind of like the feeling I've had for a while, and it sort of feels like it's sort of playing out in real time. But I don't know, like Power BI is still so popular. Like I don't think anyone's going to run away from it anytime soon, even though the world will shift like to a new way of doing things, looks like.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things you and I have learned over the past couple of years is people are slow to change. You know,
Yeah.
even when there's great alternatives out there, you know, they
Mm.
people like to stick with what they know. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting. There was a great article from somebody at Google who was high up at Google and left, and she was saying, you know, kind of why haven't people really embraced, you know, kind of the range of capabilities that AI gives us. You know, everybody's played around with ChatGPT, but a lot of people, even people in the data community, don't have, you know, haven't shelled out $20 for the, you know, kind of
Mm.
the premier versions. And she was talking about, and she said it's really her view, and I think this makes sense, is it's really a function of time. And that, you know, people, and I've been in this situation myself where I've been so busy at work that I haven't had time to learn the things that would save me time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think the fact that you and I have both had that time to really experiment, and it's not hard, but it does
Mm.
take time.
It does. It
And,
does.
you know, you really do need to put in that, you know, those hours over the weeks and months to really get good with, you know, prompting AI, interpreting the outputs. And I think a lot of people just haven't had the time. You know, so because I
Yeah.
wonder, I'm like, why isn't everybody doing this? And I think, you know, the answer is they just haven't had the time to really dig into it.
Yeah. I've had some really good thoughts over the last week, or definitely since we last chatted. Um, a lot of findings and a lot of like deep dives, and I think there's a sort of multi-layered approach there. The first thing I want to drill down on is I think that so much of what we're moving into is going to be API driven rather than some custom like formula engine or some custom text engine or something like that. You know, like there's something like, you know, if you think about Power BI or Excel, they've got like an engine underneath them. If you try and classify it as that, it's probably got some other name, but that's kind of how I think of it. And it feels like there's a completely new way of doing things appearing or has appeared and is getting better that bypasses those engines entirely. And so that's kind of what I feel is happening with analytics. And I don't, and you, I'm sure, I know we agree. It's like, I don't think analytics is going to be done any less. It's going to be done probably 10 times more because of this new way of doing things. Because you just get a, like, opportunity to run this analysis is going to be so distributed. It's going to be so distributed because you'll just be able to plug in the API rather than, say, a big provider having the only one access to the formula engine, right? Like it feels like anyone's going to be able to access these API calls currently.
You know, it's funny. I've been obsessed over the last week with the API access. You know, I've just
Yeah.
been learning all I can about that. And I've got hopefully a video coming out tonight that I've been working literally since 7 this morning. You know, it's almost 7 at night here. Basically, a universal challenge solver,
Mm.
and you know, where basically you can take the challenge problem and then run it through a framework where you pick your API, and you know that I've got 2 listed under Perplexity, 3 under Anthropic, and then like 10 under OpenAI. And you just choose the model you want. You enter in the instructions that you want it to perform. You know, basically, okay, I want to take these ID numbers and these ID strings and split out the letters in one column, the numbers in the other, and just hit go, and it just solves it. And
Yeah.
you know, basically, in terms of data cleaning, it's kind of the universal data cleaner. I mean, I've been obsessed with this idea, and
Mm.
the APIs just make it pretty simple. That there's a program that Hadley Wickham, who's kind of the Michael Jordan of R, um,
Right.
put out called. I just saw it. I've been using it all day, and I'm blanking on the name.
It's interesting. So some of them, because I remember speaking to someone from the art community maybe a year ago, and they were like, no, AI is not even that good. It's not even that good. So it seems like there's been a conversion there as well. Maybe it was only like 6 months ago, actually. It wasn't actually
Yeah, I mean,
that long ago.
this is let me. I gotta find the
Sure.
name of it because
It's because the models have just gotten that much better. Like that's the reality of where we are right now, is that the models have gotten much better in the last 3 months. And now it's opened up all these new opportunities, right? Like as soon as the better model comes out, it's like this new layer of intelligence that you can plug into anything, and make it much better, much more realizable. Like you could actually make it happen, you know. And the analytics thing was not, it probably was not possible until right now. Like we've always thought that it was going to happen, but it never could because it was never reliable enough. But from your testing, you kind of discovered that it has become more reliable than ever. Probably not perfect, but I
no, it's
would,
not perfect.
yeah,
But I mean, when humans run analysis, it's not perfect either. You still got to
yeah,
check it. And I mean, I know when we both saw the first advanced data analysis from OpenAI, it
yeah,
wasn't great, but
mm,
you could see what it was going to become. And I
yeah,
think it's
yeah,
becoming exactly what we thought it would be.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think so. But the one thing that I don't think is going to happen, I still don't think, is I don't think that they're going to have like a massive competitive advantage on data analysis. And that's not going to be the only place you do data analysis. I feel like opportunity is going to be just so distributed. Like if you can call these things with an API, I mean, every place where there's some sort of relevant data to be analyzed will have it plugged in. And so it just won't make it, it might not be like this, everyone centralizes their analytics. It might not be, you might just have it available, like high quality available in a lot of the tools that you use, like a lot of the suppliers that you use might plug some template in or some add-on in to their actual software so that you don't have to, like you just think about how much of the data industry is built around extracting data from one place and sending it to another place. I mean, the amount of money spent on doing that is actually insane. It is. I saw some ridiculous stat that someone did online. I don't know, last year sometime, and that was actually half. Like it was like some ridiculous percentage of the cost of all data projects was actually moving data from one place to another.
Yeah, that's like I've seen these statistics that say 80% of data scientists' time is spent cleaning data, which just strikes me as ludicrous. And I said how completely unrealistic I thought that was. And a lot of people came back to no, I spend 80% of my time doing that. And it just
mm,
strikes me that there's so much that can be done now in terms of automation and and
Mm,
data engineering that you know
mm,
to still be up around 80% just seems insane to me. One of the things that I kind of have become jealous of Excel now because I really feel like Microsoft is dedicating a lot more resources to Excel than Power BI. It kind of seemed
mm,
to reverse about 4 years ago, but
mm,
now they've got Python and Excel, and you can run regex, you can run natively, you can run Python, and
mm.
some of the tools like I don't know if you know Owen Price, but
Yep.
he
Yep.
he went to work for Anaconda, and they
Mm,
are just producing some amazing add-ins for
mm.
Excel to run all
Mm.
this stuff natively. You don't have to pull your data anywhere. You've got it right up there, and you can just analyze there. And I was thinking, boy, you know, I wish Power BI was kind of advancing at the same rate that Excel is.
Yeah, yeah. One of the big insights I've had in the last week or two is I you see so many clickbait titles where people are like, "Oh, SaaS is dead. Jobs are over. Everyone's gonna lose their jobs." Honestly, I do not believe any of it. I actually think the exact reverse on almost all of those tropes. I actually do. Even a really good one, like, or you could say has some sort of relevance in terms of the SaaS industry model, like the subscription model is sort of under threat. Like you could somewhat agree with that. And yes, I think that some areas of that industry might be in trouble, but all I am actually seeing is that there's just going to be a hell of a lot more software. Like I actually think SaaS is just at the beginnings of its actual growth in the industry, like as an industry, because there's just so much more software you could actually build. So yes, maybe some historic software like that doesn't do any, like it doesn't change or doesn't evolve is in trouble, but there's just going to be so much more software used. And I think sometimes I think, oh, Microsoft might be in trouble, and I have thought that over the last like 6 to 12 months because a lot of other tools will come in, but I'm not so sure anymore. I think they're actually going to be they're going to grow massively. I think they're going to grow massively. Their software is going to be more used because it's going to become much easier, but there's also going to be room for so much other software to be used as well. Like there's just some opportunity is just being distributed. The value chain is changing so much in that industry, but also lots of industries like analytics is another example, like we were just talking.
It's interesting because you said something a while back in one of your posts about, kind of how easy it is now to move between platforms. Basically, a new model comes out and you can switch all your analysis over to that model like that. It's
Mhm.
just one API parameter you have to change.
Mhm.
And, I think a lot of what keeps people anchored in their current tools is it's so hard to change. I mean, once you're committed
Mhm.
to,
Yeah.
Windows and Word and Excel and Power BI or Tableau, you're kind of in there for for the long haul probably. And you know,
Mm.
it's going to be interesting to see how that changes the software world when particularly with agents becoming more and more of a of a thing that you're just going to run everything from your browser. And so I think
Mm.
operating systems are going to change pretty dramatically. And when that happens, it's like you're not tied to anything, at that point. And you know
Mm.
even with file formats, I now just throw, if I need to convert anything to anything, I just throw it into ChatGPT and say, you know, convert this you know, from EPUB to PDF.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And look, I just see that like whenever I really think about it deeply and see what I'm myself am able to achieve, and opportunity is going to be so distributed. It's going to be so distributed. It's going to be unbelievable. Actually, it truly is. AI is going to create far more abundance than we've had in the past. Like there's just in everything that I see. I actually see it creating more jobs than actually anyone losing jobs. I really do. I've been on that for a long time. I don't know what you think, but what you think now. But yeah, look, there's going to be some disruption, but man, there's going to be a lot of jobs created through this. So much more opportunity to start your own business, for example, start your own software business, start your own analytics business. Like there's just opportunities everywhere.
I mean, history's on your side, that basically every major technological change that's happened in the past, 150 years has
Mm.
led to increased employment.
Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine. I mean, in some ways, the speed of this feels really different, but I agree with you. I think it's going to change. I think it's going to change the nature of a lot of jobs, just in the same way the internet did, or
Mm.
mobile technology. But I
Mm.
I see, as long as it doesn't end human life as we know it, that
I think more people will lose their jobs because of Elon Musk in the US government than they will in because of AI. That's that's kind of that's kind of how I feel at the moment. Like, what are the other things I always say, like think about or say? or right when I see someone think, "Oh, jobs are toast," or honestly, the crap you see on Twitter is crazy. But as I say, okay, let's just think of one industry, the robotics industry. It probably in the next 10 years could be 3 times bigger, maybe more than the car industry. Like that is not even a joke. We could have 1 billion robots. So who's going to manage? Who's going to service? Who's going to look after? Who's going to sell them? Who's going like it's honestly, and that industry doesn't even exist right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
so that's just literally one example, but I see the same. I could see the software industry growing 2, 3 times, like the amount of people working in it. So
I think there's going to be some midterm disruption in terms of like I've seen statistics like from the Federal Reserve data that like advertisements for junior software developers are like way down.
yeah, yeah.
And it kind of makes sense because you know that experienced developers now with the tools that are out there can do incredible stuff at really high speed. And I just saw Google saying that 25% of their software development is now done
Mm,
done by AI. And I
mm.
think Amazon came out and said even a higher percentage for them. And so the thing that worries me is that where's the entry point for the junior people who are going to be the next senior developers?
I'm,
You know that
I'm not as worried. I'm not as worried about that. Because if you think about it, every junior should be an intermediate type programmer with these new tools. They
yeah.
honestly should be. Like maybe everyone's sort of rebranded what a junior is, and it's now intermediate straight away because you know, even if you just go back through history and think, okay, well, when the calculator came along, everyone was, you didn't need a junior mathematician anymore because everyone like had a calculator and was so much smarter, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of a similar analogy now.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember talking to my dad, and he left me his slide rule from grad school, and he said back then when he was coming out of grad school, it was actually like a skill set that you would talk about of being able to do like reciprocals and power functions and cube roots and stuff. And he said that was actually like some people would like promote. And you think about it now, it's like promoting that on a resume would be insane. And I think that's the
Totally.
way it's going to be in terms of like DAX and Python. And, that people talking
Totally.
about coding is going to seem ridiculous.
I mean, if I was at university and I had access to all of these things, and I was, I didn't want to go work like I worked in a bar at university when I was younger, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do the late nights. I would be on Upwork, selling my skills in website development, in sort of simple Python coding, or like anything to do with sort of code that these AIs can just spin out for you quickly, right? And I'd even probably, if I wasn't, out partying or something, I would have been building something with these software tools. Like, because even an 18 and 19 or 20-year-old can build with these tools now. I mean, you're literally prompting with English. It's so easy. So, I think there's more opportunity. Like that's why I'm positive about it because I'm not like, okay, well, where's the entry level? Like they're just gonna. I think the entry level or the level that you've got to be at is just going to be more, right? Because you're going to have to be using these tools and you're going to have to show that you've built an app and you've built a website and you've done all these things. But building a website these days is as easy as probably writing a CV, like it was 20 years ago. So it's really not that hard. Like you
I mean,
go to
I've seen some of the stuff you've sent me where like you can take a screenshot of a website, drop it in, the software, and it basically builds a replica
yeah.
for you.
I mean, it's not even hard.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of sitting down for 20 minutes and doing it. I guess my summary is I'm still very positive. I actually think you know there's more opportunity now than ever, just like for everyone, like there is for junior people as well. Like if you can show value and you can show value in a different way, in a more advanced way than maybe what was done 5 to 10 years ago, then you're always going to have an opportunity to make it. Like that's me. What are some of the other interesting things you've been doing?
You know, I've been deep into the API stuff. I mean, the
Mm.
API, playing with Claude, testing, some of the other models.
Where have you been connecting to them? What platform?
I'm actually just kind of, believe it or not, I'm doing it through Power Query.
Wow.
Um,
Okay. Through Power Query.
and
Wow.
I've just got, I've got kind of $10 scattered. I've got 10 or $20 on like every model, or every company, and just,
Yep.
you know, basically, calling up their APIs and testing.
Yeah.
And
Do
that's
you,
been really neat. They're just kind of going from the the UI to the API has
mm,
been really exciting, because you can just, as I say, you can just, kind of queue everything up and,
yeah.
just kind of test repeatedly, kind of you set up one set of tests and then send them out over 5 different APIs, and you can really, leverage, tremendous amount of progress in a short amount of time. So that's been neat.
Yeah.
And then I've been really starting down the road that you did, that you're about a year ahead of me on it, but the app development, which is just kind of it's a whole new way of thinking about things. I'm used to the analytics tools, R and Excel and Power BI, and
Mm,
building apps is just a different way of thinking about stuff. And so I've been having a little bit of trouble kind of wrapping my head around what you need and what you do with it. Like, I have ideas of things I want to build, but I I need to kind of figure out the infrastructure that I
mm,
need. It's kind of like,
mm.
where do you put your production stuff? Where do you have your kind of your mock-up, your framework mock-ups of ideas? And I haven't
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't really gotten that workflow down yet.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, because I've been doing it, I don't know, maybe for probably 6 months really full on, and then a little bit before that. Um, I guess like now that I've done it a few times, it has actually become sort of like second nature. But you're right, you're right. Just a few simple things that I didn't even know, and it just shows how novice I was at the start, that I just take for granted now, is that an application, like any app online, any app within a website or anywhere, it is just a list of files. This is the whole range of files that you can store on your computer that aggregate up to create that app. That's all they are. And when I sort of realized that, it did actually make it a lot simpler for me, because those files can be anywhere. They can be on your computer, they can be in GitHub. You can get them from GitHub, bring them onto your computer, and then you realize, okay, if it's just a list of files, well, where's the central area where I can keep track of my core, like production code? Well, that's GitHub. GitHub
Right.
is where you place all of your production code. That's where you centrally house all of your code. So if you're working away on something, you just push it back to GitHub, and then that's the main repo of your code. And then you can actually so once you figure that out, that's good. And all GitHub is just a list of files. It's just a list of files, just like they are elsewhere. And then what a lot of these hosting services do now is they just aggregate from GitHub. They just link to your GitHub, and then they host it for you. So it's once you get that framework in your mind, I found that much easier to understand, because yeah, when you don't know that, you're like, wow, how does this all fit together? How does an app even work? But it's just a list of files. And then when I sort of got that, then I just sort of dug a little bit deeper, and I thought, okay, well, there's a bit of an architecture. There's a way you architect your files, you organize your files. And a lot of these AI tools like help you with that, right? Like when you build, they actually build in a best practice way. And so you can actually see, okay, oh, this is how you modularize your files. This is how you put them in the right folders. This is how you kind of understand it. So now when I go to like GitHub and I go to an open source project, I'm starting to get the hang. Like I'm starting to get the hang of like where to go, like what to do, what to look at,
Mhm.
what to look for. How is like go and see what each component is doing, how the components all tying together. So I've gotten a lot better, and that's how. But it all started with realizing, okay, this is just a list of files. This is just a list of files in folders, and then they all aggregate together. So hopefully that was a useful. That's a useful analogy.
Yeah, the thing I'm having a little bit of trouble envisioning is kind of where do you put your data sets? Like, do you
Database.
connect to those online, or do you keep them locally?
You can do both. You can do both. I've mainly done the online versions, but that's what, like, you just connect to a cloud-based database, or there's these databases
That's
that,
Superbase that you've been using?
yeah, Superbase, MongoDB. Yeah, I think there's like SQLite is another one. There's quite a few. Firebase is another quite popular one. I mean, and then Azure and AWS, like, all of those can be used as well. And so the thing is that if you go set it up, the AI will go and you just tell the AI, okay, here's my data. How do I connect to it? It will figure it out. It will usually figure it out. Like, because um, I know where in my code I need to look for, well, I can just ask, and it will tell me, okay, this is where the connection is actually happening to Superbase. And so that's all I need to know, really, I feel. Yeah.
I think your point about, kind of doing it yourself makes you a better consumer. In terms of you can look at other people's, code and open source, stuff
Yep.
and have a much better idea what's going on. Like that's a really attractive thing for me because like I don't have like aspirations to really build, commercial apps or selling it. It's more just stuff I'd like to do for my own use that, there's not a current product that does exactly what I want it to do. And
Yeah.
so, the ability to kind of build your own custom stuff that meets your needs is really attractive. And
Mm.
I like I really love what you've been doing in terms of sharing those. You've been doing that yourself and then just sharing
Mm.
them out. And that's
Yep.
kind of what I want to do as well. Kind of build skills and kind of become a better consumer and maybe share some useful stuff in the
Yep.
process.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before, but I've never been more excited to sit at my computer for years and years and years as I'm learning this new stuff. I've never actually felt more creative mentally as well, like in terms of ideas or things I could do. Um, it's been so eye-opening. And in a lot of cases, I still am not writing any code. I'm not writing any code. I'm just an architect of a solution, and I'm getting the AIs to write all the code for me. But in doing that, as being this sort of composer, if you like, man, my creativity is off the charts. Like, I have too many ideas, like way too many ideas, The hardest thing is just actually focusing. But I've got ideas of just things that I want to build and that I'm trying to build, but also ways and directions we could take the business, now, like, things I would never even dreamt of doing. But we can do it now. We can absolutely do it. There's this huge software wave that's an idea that I truly believe in. So why don't we go after it? Why don't we do something in this software wave? Why not? Opportunity is so distributed. Instead of just saying that, let's actually do it. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. In various different ways. One is obviously learning, is going to show other people how to do it. But we've got some other ideas around apps and tools we can build as well.
I totally agree. I've also never felt more creative than I do now because it's like
Mm.
this just opens up like basically anything you can think of is now possible. Like
Yeah.
you can do it. I was joking with somebody. It's like those sci-fi movies where like somebody finds a way to like a pill to use like 100% of their brain, and I,
Mm.
I feel like it's like you can learn anything now, and you can like the other day I built um a script for Tabular Editor that was like had an interface and radio buttons and I didn't even know you could do that in C sharp. And it was like 600 lines of code and I did it in a night. And I don't even write C sharp. I mean, it's
Mm.
not a language I know. And
Yeah.
it was just a phenomenal experience of just, you know, working with this was Claude when Claude 3.7 came out and it was basically like the feeling I had was it was like I was on a chat a remote it was like working with a remote developer in Seattle or something and
Yeah.
we're just messaging back and forth. I'm saying, okay, I like this, but if somebody's already entered their API key, they shouldn't have to enter it again. And it's like, okay, we can
Yeah.
store that in a variable and check the variable when they fire up the script. And it just worked phenomenally. And
Yeah.
as I say, it's not a language I know. I couldn't write one decent line of C# myself. Yeah, I came out of it with, I think, a better script than I've seen pretty much anybody write, just because, as I say, I didn't even know you could put UI components into those scripts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, this is happening across like every vertical you can imagine, like art, images, text, code, etc. And it's like still some people find that threatening, and I just think, man, you gotta flip that around. You gotta be like, this is the biggest unlock of my life. You can do so much more than what you could do historically. I think people are doing. I really do. It has taken a while. It has taken a while. But the latest models are really sort of showing that. I will say one thing. One thing I've learned that I think is a really good insight around Claude 3.7. So I initially had that feeling, wow, this feels like talking to a human, it did so much that I had to do two things at once, like develop two applications at once. And what I realized though, after a while of doing this, is yes, it was seriously cool. But these AI agents, is what people call them, they can go off the rails very, very quickly. So even though it's cool, it is cool that you can sort of set them off and they go do 15 things, and you're just like, wow, that's crazy. They are, in my view, not ready for prime time. Like I just let it go too far, and then I've spent. Have you heard of this term vibe coding? It's like it's
yeah,
this
yeah.
over the last like 48 hours, vibe coding has turned into rage debugging. That's honestly what has happened to me, because I've just set these things out, and then I've just in a rage try to fix all the stuff that I don't understand, and that they've kind of like made overcomplicated. And so that's just like a little bit of insight. And I would presume that encoding and building applications is nothing different to doing any other job with these things. You just cannot let them go without some sort of oversight.
Well, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like I've been saying this for months now, that even data analysts who view themselves as, you know, independent analysts, we're all managers now. And
Yeah, yeah, you have,
that
yeah,
the thing that strikes me is that managing teams of AI models is not that different in terms of the skills you need than managing people. You
yeah,
need to be really clear in your expectations. You need to, kind of know the strengths and weaknesses of, who's working for you. And it's really interesting when you're talking about like these things going off the rails. What I finally have come to is basically a feeling that $200 I'm spending a month on the OpenAI Pro is actually worth it. Like, because what I found is that neither it nor Claude 3.7 alone can keep from going off the rails, but they can
mm,
reinforce each other. And so when one of them is just kind of off in space, I'll often take that code and throw
mm,
it to the other one and say, fix this and simplify it.
yeah,
And it's interesting just in terms of the teamwork in a sense that you get from doing that. And it was really interesting because on this universal challenge solver thing I was working on, I started doing it in Python because I just thought more people use Python. Typically when I use R, I get crickets, and
mhm,
so I thought, okay, let me try it in Python. And the problem was I don't know Python well enough to really be an effective manager of a
mm,
team that's using Python.
mm,
And I don't think you need to be expert, but you need to be competent.
mm,
And I'm very good in R and not at all good in Python. And
mm,
so what I did is I switched the project over to an R-based project. And this is when I
mm,
pulled in, Hadley Wickham's new, it's called Elmer, by the way. It solves all the authentication problems. Cause like, I don't know if you found this, but like Perplexity and OpenAI have a very similar authentication structure. And you can basically switch interchangeably. Anthropic is different. And
Right. Yep.
Anthropic will constantly throw these, messages about anonymous login, and it can't use web.contents and file.contents and and it just caused all kinds of problems. And so I couldn't solve that in Python. I pulled the project back, brought it into R where I could kind of supervise the agents I had doing stuff, and
Mm,
it's run much more smoothly. And so,
mm,
my feeling is on the debugging is the human in the loop still needs to be knowledgeable. And
yeah.
I can't just let them run on something complex and oversee it if I don't know, at least at an intermediate level, what I'm looking at. Once I
Yeah.
get it working flawlessly in R, then I can say, okay, rewrite this in Python.
Mm, I totally agree with you. I mean, I've had so many insights in the last week or two because I've just been so deep into it. Like I spend pretty much all my day actually in these coding tools. And the more I use them, the more I wish I actually knew how to code. Like I don't think everyone realizes this, that if you actually know how to code and you can use these tools, I mean, you are at the biggest advantage I've ever seen. Like it is not a threat at all. You are so advantaged because all of the things that slow you down, like actually writing out the code, is just been abstracted away, and that you would understand it and you would be able to debug it and you'd be able to get through whatever work you needed to get through so much faster. Because I'm having to, I'd generate code and I'd sit there and I'd hope it'd work, and then if it didn't work, I'd have to copy some of the code out into another model to try and get help. Well, increasingly, I don't have to go out. I can stay within these IDEs. But if I want to copy the whole code base or something and get some advice on something, and go to O1 Pro like you do, and get advice on that, like that takes time. But someone who knows what they're doing, man, God. So I'm going to learn how code works more and more and more as I go through this, right? In my rage debugging that I was doing yesterday for pretty much the entire day, um, man, I learned so much about like how to read code. Not how to write it, but how to read it. Kind of like how I always knew how to read M code, but never knew how to write it. Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same.
Well, and that's, I think if you understand conceptually what it's doing,
Yeah,
that's
that's it.
pretty much what you need.
Yeah, that is also the biggest thing that I've learned as well about these. So yes, software development has been democratized like crazy. I truly believe it. But if you think that you can use any of these tools and just vibe code to some awesome app, is totally unrealistic. It's I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's ever going to happen. Um, any headline that says that can be done, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Like you still have to deeply understand your database, deeply understand how the functions in your code works. You need to deeply understand your app. There's just nothing around that. Even though it has been made so much easier, there's nothing around that. And I would, I bet you'd say the same thing about analytics as well. Exactly the same thing, right? Like it's going to make it a lot easier, but it's still not going to change anything in terms of the knowledge that you need to have to actually make it meaningful.
I always say that AI is enabling people to run terrible analyses 10 times faster than they ever did before.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually taken a lot of guardrails off of things, because it used to be that in order to write a time series ARIMA forecasting model, you
Mm.
needed to know something about that.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself kind of got you up to a certain level of understanding. And machine learning same way. And now it's like you can literally, with like a single prompt,
Mm.
build an entire regression analysis or machine learning model. And there's just going to be some awful models built.
I'm going to say that there is awful analysis done even today. So I
Oh
still
yeah, yeah, no
so
question. But it's going to make it much easier to do terrible analysis, and there are going to be way more people doing terrible analysis.
coders say the same thing. They say exactly the same thing. There's going to be so many terrible applications built.
Oh,
It's exactly the same thing.
I'll probably be building some of those. But yeah, I think my hope with analysis, and I'm sure people on the software side think the same thing. as we're not, I think kind of data analysis kind of lost its way a little bit. It's
Mm,
become a lot about writing SQL code and
mm,
writing DAX, and I
mm.
don't think it's
Fancy
really about
dashboards.
that. Yeah,
Fancy dashboards.
dashboards, and
Mm,
I saw somebody talking about how he did an audit a company last week, and there were 1,200 dashboards, and it's like, how does that happen? The probably 1% of those were being used, critically,
mm,
um, and so, my hope is that as AI takes on more of that, that we all kind of retool and reskill and kind of go back to the fundamentals of asking good questions,
mm,
analyzing the results using kind of proper methodology,
mm,
interpreting them in a rigorous way. You know, it's really interesting because if you look at like they're doing this visualization championships now, and you look
mm,
at a lot of the reports, and they look great. They're beautiful, but they
mm,
don't say anything. They're just
mm,
descriptive. They're not generating any insight, and they're really not generating any recommendations.
mm,
And
mm,
my hope is that as we kind of offload more and more of that stuff to AI, that we end up taking on more of the what I think is kind of the heart of analysis, which is questions, insights, recommendations. And I'm
mm,
sure there's an analogy for software.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. There was another thing that you said before that I was gonna circle back on. This is another insight that I've had. I think you feel the same way. I think this concept of AI agents is completely overdone. I sometimes don't even know what AI agents is, but it's something so broad, and I'm sure everyone sort of feels the same way. But what I've realized is, so there's been this whole like ecosystem built around this agent, these agents that just think and do, and you give them a task and they get it done. And I think what's happening is that everyone has realized that's actually not a smart idea. And what you can do is just AI automation, where you layer calls to AI models on top of each other, just like one on top of each other, sometimes talking to different models. And you just put them in a sequence and you go boom, 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 and then you get some sort of result. So as a simple example, say you wanted to write a social media post. Well, what you would do is you would get an AI model to write, or maybe different models to write one post each. And then you would have another model, you would send all of those to another model that would check and work out, okay, what do you think is the best one? And then it would give you a write up and it would say, oh, okay, this is the best one. And then it would, maybe another model would improve it with recommendations or something. So look, that's just a very simple example, but that's kind of the idea. And I'm seeing the same thing. This is where I see actually all the opportunities in building apps right now, because that stuff was never possible before. And the models weren't even that smart before. But now you can layer these really smart models one call after the next, and you can tie them all together automatically to get amazing output, like incredible output on almost anything. Almost anything. So I think this concept of like agents as they were maybe a year ago is sort of evolving to this concept I just think is called AI automation. Just like hitting API calls like consistently. And it's so cheap. It's so ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I literally I hammered the APIs yesterday
Yeah.
for hours, and it cost
Yeah.
me 20 cents.
Yeah.
Like
I know.
literally, it was 20 cents.
Yeah. I
And
know.
I mean, one of the things that I don't know if you play around with it, but I use ideogram for my images, and that has a
Mm,
fascinating technology in it, which is that when you prompt it, it generates four outcomes from your
mm,
prompt,
mm.
and it will tell you which one it thinks is the best. And
Ah, right. Interesting.
it's right more often than not. Like when I
Mm,
when I choose the one of the four that I think fits the prompt best and looks the best,
yeah.
more often than not, it's the one that it chose. And
Yeah.
that's like magic to me. I have
Yeah. It
no
was, it's,
idea how
it's,
it.
it's just probably sending them to an image, like to a model, a multimodal model. It's running some prompt aside, like beside it, saying, "Hey, which one do you think is most aligned?" So that sort of that's just one example. And where I'm saying this is truly where my creative brain just goes bananas, because you can do that to almost any workflow you could imagine. Like think of every single thing that you do in your life. Like there could be an app built to layer that sort of thing onto it, or there you could build it yourself, like that's what you can do now. Like as an example, I would love, absolutely love if someone like there was an app that just looked at all of my emails in the morning, and I could come in and I could talk to it and I could say, hey, which ones are relevant that I need to follow up? And then it would just tell me, because it would have gone and assessed it all, and then maybe it would have automatically drafted every single email potentially to send back. And then I could go and review all the drafts. Like that's just one example. Another example that I'm working on is this Power BI example where I'm gonna try and extract all of the metadata, and I'm going to layer maybe 20 or 40, maybe even 40 API calls on like automatically on top of each other, and basically tell someone how to improve or create their entire report with all of the formulas, all of the code, everything at once. That's where the opportunities are. It's not building software that we historically used. It's about building this new wave of AI augmented software like that. And it's not even that hard. Like it's not even that hard. Like it sounds far harder than it actually is. It's just usually just a little bit of code. Like as you've discovered, it's just a little bit of code connecting to an API, and it just sends you back the results.
Yeah. I think with the agents, I think they were kind of sold to us as, autonomous.
Yeah.
And I even remember people saying autonomous agents, where it'll book your travel and it'll, order your food. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's a disaster.
It's so
I think
boring.
that
It's
made,
so boring. Like how is that even exciting?
well, and even if it was possible, like
Mm,
the idea of giving that kind of autonomy, with your credit cards to, I,
yeah.
I wouldn't even give that to a person, much less a computer.
Yeah.
Um, and I think now it's developing a lot more realistically. Like, the deep research that you
Mm,
get on the OpenAI Pro,
mm.
it's still there's some hallucinations. You got to be careful with it, but it's really good. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to do a review of API costs.
Mm,
Basically pull all the model names, the model IDs, and then the token costs,
mm,
input and output per million tokens, and it pulled together a great report in a fraction of the time it would have taken me to do it.
mm. That is another insight I had recently. It was a few months ago, actually, is that these models are so good, and deep research is just another iteration on that. We're sort of moving into the age of transparency, like extreme transparency, because you can put all these variables into these models, and it can spit out like this incredible report around your, like, I mean, anything that's from a cost perspective or advice perspective, like you
Yeah.
can, everything's got to be so transparent. Like, I think the age of sort of information arbitrage is a way to think of it. Like in a lot of areas, is it's diminishing. It's diminished already, and it's going to diminish even more. So it's just another trend. I don't know exactly how all the permutations of that, but that's sort of how I feel like one of the big things that is happening.
There's one other big thing that hasn't gotten any play at all, and I don't know if you've
Mm.
played around with it, but I've been diving deep on it. Is Claude 3.7 has a feature that nobody is talking about, which is, and it's kind of, for me, it's kind of the holy grail of AI, which is the ability to take an LRM and train it on your own data really easily.
Yeah,
And
right.
Claude can do that.
Oh, wow.
It's really limited in terms. It's 60 megs,
Okay.
and so basically I can't even fit the Russo and Ferrari DAX optimization book, in that 60 megs.
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah.
you know, you got to think that the technology is now there. It's
Mm.
it's expanding it and making it fast enough that it could be 500 megs, which is what a custom GPT is.
Yeah.
And so if we get to the point soon where we can take these really sophisticated models and apply them against our own data sets and
Mm,
our own
mm,
knowledge base, which, in each of our domains is going to be a lot better than, the public corpus.
mm.
Um, that's going to be incredible. That I think we're going to see a huge leap when that becomes easily available.
Yeah. Well, I think I sent you a message the other day about this. I feel like we're getting to a point where we might be, the benchmarks just don't matter as much anymore, or they, they're still there, and everyone talks, oh, it's this smart, it's this intelligent, it beats this many people at coding and stuff. But I truly feel like the models are getting, like, they're good enough. They're good enough for like decade of advancement in so many different areas. Already, and the word is they're going to get better too. Like you should hear some of the hyperbolic chat on Twitter. Supposedly they're getting even better. But anyway, I think we're moving beyond that, and it's about context. Like that's what you're basically talking about there, right? Like you need larger context. It needs to understand the context or the data better when that you feed it. And the other big one I feel that is going to become more talked about soon is this level of personalization, is the models being totally personalized to you.
Yeah.
And that, I think this is going to be talked about way more, because it is actually, if you think about it, this is the killer app of AI, is if it's personalized to you. Because yes, you can, as you know, like you can jump to another model, like you can jump to another interface. If Grok is a better model than ChatGPT, well, you just jump to Grok. If Claude is a better model, you'll jump to Claude. But if this model knows you really well personally, you'll find less reasons to leave. I really think that that's the killer app. There's a killer app, and that see, it leads me to that's what I think GPT 4.5 actually is a sign of. I saw your post, and it was a good breakdown of why, of the pros and cons of the model. But one of the things that I've like realized using it and sort of reading some of the posts like I've seen online of others using it, is that this thing has so much depth to its responses. Like it is so personal. It's like a reflection. Like I even saw someone say it's like a reflection of your consciousness. Like that's pretty deep. Like if people are sort of feeling that, right? Like you never felt that when you were reading ChatGPT a year ago. Like it was just like lists of things. But now
Right.
it's sort of,
Right.
there's something deeper about it. So I don't know. There's just another thought. I think that this is the start of something new. It's the personalization era of AI.
Well, one of the things that I read and I started doing was in the custom instructions for all the models. All the models have some degree of custom instructions. That what I've started putting in there is what software do I use? What's my level of expertise or lack thereof at each one,
Yeah,
and so that I can tell it, okay, I'm expert in R, I'm amateur, I'm novice in Python, gear your answers accordingly. It doesn't waste my time explaining stuff and things I know, and it gives me a lot more background in the things I don't. And you can really, I think it's one of the really underrated features that you can really personalize and tailor that, and I think once again, probably with APIs, you can feed one set of custom instructions out to a bunch of different models and,
yeah,
kind of have that remain kind of a consistent experience over each of the models that you run.
yeah. I read somewhere online about 4.5 that because you saw this as well. It's so expensive to like
Oh
the
my God,
the API
it's
is
insane.
like it's almost outrageously expensive. It's so much more expensive than some of the other AI models. Like we're talking probably 200 times more expensive than like Google's model or something.
Oh yeah, then Flash or
Yeah,
some of the mini models, it's two orders of magnitude more.
yeah. I read maybe it's a conspiracy theory, or maybe not, but there's a reason why they made it so expensive, is because they don't want. Look, they probably released it because of all the other models that have been released, and they didn't want to be left behind. So they probably did release it quite early. But it's so expensive because they think it's so good. They don't want others sort of stealing the. It's called distilling. I've read. I don't totally get it, but they don't want anyone else to distill the model for their own models to make their own models sort of smarter in certain ways. So it'd be interesting to see how that sort of plays out, because it's so much more expensive. I mean, there really is no use case for it at the moment, is there? Like there really isn't, compared to using the other models.
Oh, it was funny. Yesterday, I made sure that in the pick lists I've been developing, that
Yeah,
I didn't accidentally select 4.5, because you
yeah,
hammer 4.5 all day, and you're gonna run your account out.
yeah. I know. It's crazy. It's crazy how it's considered. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that is real even now, is generally how cheap AI is. Like it is mind-blowingly cheap. Like, and it's going to get even cheaper. I've read, I mean, I didn't read it. I just like saw some headlines about this deep seek paper that came out last week, or they released quite a few things last week. I mean, they're
I read it
highly,
and I didn't understand it.
yeah, they're highly
Actually,
technical. I mean, I don't
yeah,
understand that stuff, but someone who kind of seemed like they did sort of just highlighted, these guys have worked out how to run these models at like 20 times cheaper than US counterparts right now. Like that's how cheaply they're running these things. And so, all it means is that it's going to get even cheaper, which is kind of hard to imagine. But, you know, I literally cannot even, I want to spend 20 times the amount I am spending on AI through our platform, through my apps. I want to, because then I know people are using it extensively. But I just can't find enough places to use it at this point. Like it's that cheap.
it is getting just cheaper and faster, and it's going to get to the point. You raised a great point before, which is how much better do the models really need to get? I was talking to
Yeah.
somebody the other day who was a really experienced software developer, and he was saying, he's like, I just run L1 Mini. He's like, that gives me everything I need. He's
Yeah.
like, I don't need the models to get better.
The
They're
context
basically,
is, yeah, that's the context thing. You need to be able to more context into these things. Yeah, I'm with you. The models probably will get better, but even where they are right now, it's still so game changing, in so many different ways.
yeah. And I think
Yeah.
it was interesting what you said about 4.5, because I was pretty critical, and I kind of got this and I was like, what is this? Like, it's
Mm.
expensive, it's slow, it's
Mm.
not
Yeah, it was slow
noticeably
too. Yeah.
smarter.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I found was that a lot of knowledgeable people were saying that, but what they were saying was, if you take somebody who's got an IQ of 100 and you take somebody who's got an IQ of 120, but
Mm.
you give the person with the 120 IQ a long time to think about their answers, it's gonna the divergence is gonna be big. And they said
Mm.
you may not see kind of in the moment a big difference between GPT-4 and 4.5, but it
Mm.
is smarter. It's maybe 15%
Mm.
smarter. But
Mm.
when you magnify that through the reinforcement learning and expanding the test time compute, they said
Mm.
it's gonna be a lot better.
I think the same thing. And I mean, like, I've been spending a bit of time on Twitter just because I love all the AI chat, and some of it is just absolute garbage. But you
Yeah, I
kind of,
can't, I can't, I can't bring myself to get on Twitter.
everyone's just trying to go for some clicks there. But like there is some stuff which is interesting. Like you definitely feel like you're on the edge of what's going on in AI, because even the top lab people at the labs are all posting and stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the answers that I'm seeing from this 4.5 are just extraordinary, but like not in terms of like mathematical things, but just in terms of depth, depth to the answer, like just um charisma, like humor, just like these things that were just totally lacking from anything prior that we've ever seen. And that is before they layer on what has become the key thing, is this reinforcement learning, the thinking mode. That's before they layer on the thinking mode. And so I think that there's better to come. The word is, like, through some of the chatter on Twitter, is that there is some huge breakthroughs even now that are going on. So it'd be really interesting to see. Really interesting to see. And supposedly they're all hiding stuff. They're all hiding stuff because the models have become that much better. But anyway,
Yeah.
we'll see. DeepSeek will come in
Well,
and save us all. It'll be the Chinese firm DeepSeek coming in to save us from the closed source US companies.
well, supposedly there's rumor that R2 is coming out anytime now, and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
that it's
Well,
pretty spectacular.
well, R1 was spectacular. I remember talking to you about, you were showcasing how it was actually smarter than O1 Pro at some DAX and
Yeah,
encode missions.
yeah.
So,
And Greg Deckler and I did one where he took the hardest problem he's ever done in DAX,
oh
and
yeah.
it took him like 2.5 days to solve.
Wow.
DeepSeek R1 nailed it first shot in 40 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, it's
You
just
know, and
insane, right?
it's at that point, like how much better do you need the models to be?
I know,
You know,
I know. But if they're going to release R2, you'd expect it to be better. This is, I think, the direction OpenAI is going, is they're going to have like a conductor of models. So they'll have the ON Pro within this. They'll create this like one model that accesses all of the different modes, because there's different modes for different things, and that'll be super fascinating when that comes out. Super fascinating.
well, I mean, in some ways that's kind of what 3.7 is that you've got one model with two modes,
Mm.
and it's kind of like if you ever read Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, it really
I never
mirrors
read it.
that,
Yeah, yeah, right.
and yeah, it's part of the reason I love the experience of working in 3.7 because
Mm.
you've got just one model, but you can switch it, and it's smart enough that it kind of for that chat, it retains the setting, and
Oh, right.
so you can flip it over to extended mode, talk in extended mode, and then just start a new chat and have it go back
Mm.
to
Mm.
normal mode, and it just
Right, right.
yeah, I was a little worried when I heard that GPT-5 was going to be doing that because I thought, oh, this is basically OpenAI's way of saving money, that they're going to start pushing us
Mm.
without our consent to the mini models.
Right, 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 right,
But
right.
if it's done well, which I think and I don't know if this is fair, but my view is OpenAI does things first, Anthropic does things best. Um, and I it was interesting to see Anthropic be the first one out with the hybrid model, and
Mm. Mm.
I, I was really skeptical of that. And I think it depends. I think it depends basically whether they're using the hybrid in your interest or theirs.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Anthropic, it seems to be, kind of playing in the favor of the user.
Mm.
It'll be
Mm.
interesting to see if OpenAI, does the same.
Yeah. I wouldn't can't count out Grok as well from XAI from Elon. It's very, very good as well. Incredible at coding. It has a personality. It's not as yeah, and supposedly it's getting better. The other thing that I truly believe is that you always see, oh, this model's better than this one, model's better than this one, oh, this one's going to be in trouble because this model's better. Like honestly, I roll my eyes. Like the market for this stuff is going to be so massive, like so big. There is room for many, many players here. I just don't even think there'll be one player. I think more will emerge actually. I think that there'll be specific models for specific things. Like there just won't be one model that rules them all. Like I just cannot see it at this point. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, even like Meta, that they've been unheard. No, I haven't heard from them for like a long time. Even Microsoft aren't really in the game. Apple haven't got anything. Like, there's no reason why these guys
Apple
can't.
stuff is terrible. I mean,
Oh,
I got a new
horrific,
iPad, and
horrific.
the Apple Intelligence is just bad.
It's horrendous. You wonder what's going on there. But anyway, Brian, this has been awesome. This has been great as usual.
Great.
We always have great chats. We've just recorded it this time, so hopefully we get some others interested in what we're chatting about. But yeah, I mean, I love recapping some of our takes on our posts as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of thought that goes into those. A lot of effort that goes into those. So I think it's sort of good format.
It was funny. You said when we started, we only had an hour, and we've blown through like an hour and 20 minutes. And I feel like
Oh,
there's a
we
whole
have.
bunch of stuff.
Oh
There's
God,
a whole
I
bunch of
know.
stuff we didn't get to talk about.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks,
Talk to you
Sam.
later. Good to chat. Bye.